on any measure of sort of like quality of life, any measure shows that having a purpose in life is top of the list. And if you're in pain and your purpose in life in any way involves the use of your body, then chronic pain really has the potential to rob you of your purpose in life.
I believe that your wellness and your longevity is not a destination, it's more of a journey, and it requires maintenance, and you have to be disciplined.
You are on this earth long enough and you use your body long enough, you are going to develop aches and pains and arthritis and degenerative processes. And I've found nothing better to reverse that process than these types of therapies.
One of the things that I see often is people think that you have to wait till something is wrong with your body before you start looking into these types of protocols. And I think that people need to understand that you don't have to have something wrong with you, that you can actually get ahead of a condition or an injury by trying these protocols while you still have optimal cognitive function. Welcome everyone. I'm Mike Cantrell, CEO and founder of White Glove Wellness. And today we're having a conversation that I believe will define where the regenerative industry is heading. I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Harry Adelson, a true pioneer, a global authority, and the creator of the world's first full-body stem cell makeover. His work has influenced practitioners around the world and set the standard for what advanced regenerative protocols should look like. And today, we're excited to introduce a major evolution of that innovation, the Full-Body Stem Cell Makeover White Glove Wellness Edition. This is our new signature, co-developed protocol that merges Dr. Adelson's world-renowned systemic regenerative approach with the White Glove Wellness longevity framework. Together, we've created a comprehensive, next-generation experience designed not just to repair, but to preserve and elevate your biology for years to come. As our organizations begin working together, our mission is to bring full transparency, education, and leadership to a rapidly growing space, highlighting what consumers need to know, what actually delivers results, and what the future of longevity is going to require. Here's the truth. People invest heavily in real estate, stocks, crypto, assets that rise and fall with the market. But the greatest asset you will ever own is your body, your mobility, your cognition, your energy, your longevity. And unlike financial markets, those returns pay you back every single day of your life. That's why conversations like this matter. If you care about your long-term health, your vitality, your resilience, and your ability to live the life you love for as long as possible, this video is for you. So let's begin. Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Mike Cantrell with White Glove Wellness, and today I am joined by the wonderful Dr. Harry Adelson here in Park City, Utah. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Harry's incredible protocol that he came up with and how he is a pioneer in the field of regenerative medicine. And my goal is to share with our clients how this protocol can contribute to your longevity and health span and how it works from a scientific and medical expert like Dr. Harry Adelson. So Harry, thanks for having me. One of the things that I noticed that we are aligned with is the importance of the future of human longevity. And so when I learned about your protocol, I thought, man, this is by far the best of the best I've ever seen. And so I was very excited to learn more about it. And once I got to know you on a personal level, I felt that you would just be the perfect partner for what we do. So could you do me a favor and tell the audience a little bit about how you got into this? What is your driver? What is the purpose that got you to this point in your career?
You bet, Mike. So first of all, I just want to say it's such a pleasure to finally meet you. I'm amazed we haven't met sooner, but our paths finally crossed. And yeah, I think this is a wonderful, wonderful way. There's amazing potential for us to work together, and I think this is just great. And so my story is I got into regenerative medicine because of rock climbing. I had back when I was in my 20s and 30s, my entire life revolved around rock climbing, and I had a bad shoulder injury, and I was told that I was going to need surgery for it, and I didn't want to do surgery, and I ended up having the predecessor to stem cell therapy, which was something called prolotherapy, which was the injection of natural substances directly into damaged structures to effectively trick your body into thinking that they've been re-injured, thereby launching the body's natural healing cascade without causing any tissue insult, so you get all the benefit of a healing response without actually having been injured. And it worked so well that was sort of my life path unfolded before me. And I did prolotherapy full time for 4 years. And then platelet-rich plasma came along. And platelet-rich plasma is exactly the same concept. You take a person's blood, you concentrate down the blood platelets, which are responsible for what? Healing after injury, for triggering your body's own endogenous stem cells to heal damaged tissue. And it worked better than the prolotherapy. And for 6 years, I did nothing but PRP. PRP was 100% of my practice. And then I had a patient ask me to do bone marrow stem cells into her knees. She's a woman that we had treated for years. We'd gotten her better, but we couldn't quite get her all the way there. And she found out about animal studies that were being performed using bone marrow stem cells. And I learned how to aspirate and concentrate bone marrow, and it worked even better than the PRP, which worked better than the prolotherapy. Same sheet music, different instrument. Same exact concept for each of those modalities, but using the body's natural ability to heal, but just using sort of stronger components. And in those early days when I was doing initially bone marrow stem cells, the only people in the United States, this is back in 2010, 2011, the only people who'd heard of it were ranchers and cowboys and wranglers. And the reason for that is because back then, in 2011, 2012, 2013, the only doctors who were doing it back then were veterinarians. And they were doing it on horses. And so these guys had these expensive workhorses who would get too old to work, and they'd take him to this guy, and the guy would take sternal bone marrow stem cells and put them in the horse's arthritic hooves, and they'd get 2 or 3 more years of work out of them.
Oh, wow.
And these guys were very pragmatic, and they would see this with their own eyes, and they would say to this guy, well, can you do that on my neck and my back and my shoulders and my hips? And the guy would say, well, no, I can't because I'm a veterinarian, but I've heard of a guy in Park City now, which is only an hour away. Go to him. So I started, in those early days, I started getting these, busted up old cowboys who literally had arthritis through their whole bodies. And so I do these huge treatments on them. And I did that for a period of time. And then that's when I started getting the biohackers. I started getting Ben Greenfield. I started getting Mark Hyman. I started getting those guys in. People interested in the longevity. People interested in being very physically active, very late into life. And I would do, low back treatments, neck treatments. I'd been doing that for years with PRP and prolotherapy, and I would do sort of these site-specific treatments. But when I started getting these biohackers and people interested in being very physically active, very late into life, I had this guy say, well, can't you just do my whole body in a single sitting? I think he flew in from Florida, and he was like, if I'm going to go all this way, I want you to do everything all at once. I thought, well, I've been doing it with these cowboys for years. Why not? And that was the birth of the Full-Body Stem Cell Makeover. So essentially, it's for people from the Mick Jagger school of anything worth doing is worth overdoing. If we're gonna go through the effort of you making the trip here, and I do everything under IV sedation, so we put people to sleep. If we're gonna go through all this rigmarole, let's just get it all done while you're here. We're going to do the full spine, base of the skull, down to your tailbone, every level, both sides. Flip you over, both shoulders, both elbows, both wrists and thumbs, both hips, both knees, both ankles and toes. While I'm doing that, my partner, Amy Killen, is doing the skin of the face to increase elasticity and hydration of the skin. She does the scalp to thicken the hair follicles and decrease the amount of gray in the hair. And in men, she does the penis because that one of the things we know stem cells do is trigger the growth of microcirculation. It enhances microcirculation, and erectile dysfunction is a circulatory disorder. And in women, she does the vagina to increase elasticity and hydration of the vaginal tissue. I finish it off off, the last thing I do is something called the sphenopalatine ganglion injection. The sphenopalatine ganglion is the fifth cranial nerve, which is the closest we can get to getting these regenerative products directly into the brain. And that's to sort of help support people neurocognitively.
Wow, this is remarkable. And I love how this came from an organic place. This is something that was true to you from day one. And it's remarkable to hear about the ranchers and the cowboys. I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
So now this is the new craze, and you've been in it for a long time. So that's
I was doing it since before it was cool. I mean, in the early days, I literally had to commute to South America, not because I was doing anything that you couldn't do here, but because no one here had heard of it.
Right.
And it was hot in Brazil. And I knew these Brazilian doctors who had these very busy practices, and all their patients wanted these therapies, but they didn't know how to do the injections. So they would invite me down, and I would go for a month, and I would go to Guayaquil, Ecuador, Bogota, Colombia, then 3 cities in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Brasilia, and Sao Paulo, and they would just line up cases for me. And I'd go to each location and do between 20 and 50 cases in a couple of days, and then come home.
Wow.
And that's how I built up so many numbers in those early days, because literally back here, no one had heard of it.
Wow, that's remarkable. So, just hearing a little bit about your experience with PRP, I think one of the things that I hear often from potential white glove wellness clients is they feel that stem cell therapy is PRP. And I explain to them, hey, it's not the same thing. There's different types of stem cell therapy. It's like a blanket statement. And they have been trying PRP, and I haven't seen, good results from that. Most clients complain that it didn't work very well or didn't work at all. And it sounds like at some point you discovered that there was something better, and that's what kind of moved you forward with things. Can you talk a little bit about why PRP is good for some people and why it's not for others? And at what point in life do you say, you know what, that's probably not what I should be doing. I should consider something more advanced.
Sure. So keep in mind, PRP was 100% of my practice for 6 years. So I have a lot of experience with PRP. PRP on a sort of a macro level, like from my perspective of treating a lot of people on it, overall is great. It doesn't help everybody. And it actually, I'm not going to say it makes them worse, but people who don't tolerate it well have massive flare-ups. And not to where it actually makes them worse off, but the flare-up is so intense that it's just an unpleasant experience. And the reason for that is when you're concentrating those platelets, you're also concentrating the white blood cells. And there are ways to do it where you're just concentrating the platelets and you're completely removing all the cellular components. But even then, you can get these big flare-ups, because effectively what you're doing is PRP is not a stem cell therapy. There are no stem cells in it, but platelets are what are signal to your own endogenous stem cells, the stem cells that exist in your body, to activate. But you have to do it with this sledgehammer. So it can be, put it this way, when I was doing the full-time PRP was when I had tiny babies in the house. And I would routinely get calls in the middle of the night because people thought they had infections. And I'm like, no, it's not an infection. We just did the injection 8 hours ago. We didn't. If you get an infection from an injection, it's usually several weeks later when it presents itself. But it was, I literally would have these pain emergencies from the therapy just being that painful. What's nice is when I made the transition to first of all, autologous stem cells from your own body, bone marrow and fat, the incidence of that went way down. But when we're using the umbilical cord tissue, the umbilical cord cellular tissue products, really none of that happens. You don't get any of that strong inflammatory response. And this is true regenerative medicine. I mean, this is true. These are actual stem cells. I mean, this is mesenchymal stem cells from birth tissues. And those are very anti-inflammatory and rely entirely on the paracrine effect, which before we started filming, we were talking about the paracrine effect. The paracrine effect is a stem cell's ability to recognize that it's in the presence of damaged tissue, release proteins that control inflammation, fight invading microbes, and signal for that tissue to heal. So it's really, PRP it can be wonderful, and in big enough numbers, it's I think overall a great thing. But put it this way, once I started doing stem cells, I kissed PRP goodbye and have not looked back.
Now, what about at certain ages? I've heard that if you're 35 or under, that PRP might be a good solution, but after 35, your stem cells begin to not work the way they're supposed to, and so to put your existing cells back in your body for certain things may not be the best solution. Is there any truth to this?
So you're talking about PRP. So for PRP,
yeah.
PRP, the mechanism of PRP is they activate your endogenous stem cells. The older you get, your number of endogenous stem cells, the stem cells inside your own body, decreases as you age. So yeah, PRP tends to be more effective in younger people for that very reason. It tends to be less and less effective the older someone gets. Similarly with using autologous stem cells, the word autologous means donor and recipient are the same person. When you're using bone marrow and fat stem cells from a person's own body, their potency they tend to become less potent the older they get. So although I did it for 10 years, I did combined bone marrow and fat stem cells and did that for years. I did it that way. And it is overall effective. But just like with anything, it doesn't work on everybody, and I do find that the older someone gets, the less potent the treatment is. I find when I do the umbilical cord tissue products, it's less of a factor. I get more consistently good results with the older population.
Interesting.
And I can't back that up with scientific paper. I mean, this is just my own experience as a clinician, having done this stuff for years. So
Right.
I can't really back any of this up. I can just say, in my experience, that's what I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I notice there's a lot of clients that that are younger that cost is a concern for them, and PRP seems to be more affordable, and so they seem to go down that path of interest. But ultimately, I think that for all ages, the umbilical cord products are probably better and worth the extra money. So one of the things you mentioned was their body goes into this response, and sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming. I'd love you to explain to me what your definition of a cytokine storm is. As I hear this term, I try and help people understand it, but I'd love to hear from you as an expert a better way to explain this, because we have clients that receive these regenerative protocols. The next day they're having this response, right? Their body is inflamed, and we try to explain to them, hey, this is a great thing that's happening, and they're like, but I feel so much pain right now, and then the next day they feel great, and I want to have a better way to explain it. What's your take on the cytokine?
I mean, just in the simplest terms, we're shaking the rug big time, and it takes a little while for the windows to open up. And this is one of the reasons. The other thing that you and I were talking about off camera is the importance of people being in decent health for this to really work. If you get somebody who has poor biological function to begin with, these therapies not only do they tend not to work, but they tend to be very unpleasant to go through, because you go through these big sort of healing reactions, and your body does not respond, doesn't resolve those issues the way that you would like them to. So really, it's critical for folks to be successful regenerative medicine patients to be in decent health to begin with. And it's always a good idea for folks to spend a period of time sort of prepping their internal milieu as they get ready for these therapies. And that's something that I know that you've put some thought into for your white glove wellness folks.
Absolutely, yeah. So what I'm very excited about is the signature protocol that we're going to have with you, Dr. Harry. And I think it's important that people know that in order for the protocol to have the best possible impact on their health, we need to make sure that their body is optimized ahead of time. And so what we plan to do is put them through an endocrine-led coaching program that focuses on their metabolic function. For example, 30 days of executive health coaching, primarily focused on nutrition. let's take a look at what you're eating. How often are you eating? How much water are you drinking? And are you putting the right food in your body based on your blood work? Are your hormones balanced? What are your inflammatory markers right now? Let's take a look at some of this stuff ahead of time and try and optimize the body naturally over a period of 30 days before we send them to Utah to receive this advanced protocol. I think what that does for us is it puts that body into a state where it's fully optimized and the inflammation is down. So what I've noticed is especially clients that drink alcohol.
Oh, big time.
Their body is not prepared. It's still in detox mode. And so it's hard for someone to get a biological protocol that is a big drinker and it continues to drink and then expect it's going to work well because their body can't get into that healing mode. It's stuck in that detox mode. So I started learning about that, and that's when it made me realize, I think it's important that we prep the body. Yeah. So as part of our protocol together, that's what our clients will receive. They'll go through that.
That's great.
And then we'll present them to you, and they'll be primed. The soil will be fertilized.
That's great. That's great, because that's something I've never really had an opportunity to offer people, because I'm so laser focused on the procedures, and I figure that people who are coming to me are either already doing all of this stuff because they're Ben Greenfield devotees or Mark Hyman devotees, and they're already doing all the right stuff, or they're not, and they're not going to listen to me anyway. So right. I love the idea of having somebody else sort of talk them through this, and that has absolutely been, I will not treat people who are active heavy drinkers because it doesn't work. Like, it just will not work. It's not they're not going to have any benefit from it, and then I'm going to hear all about it later. So, I think sort of a side conversation we can have another time is, Mike, I think in our lifetime, alcohol is going to be viewed like tobacco. It really is. It's pure poison for your body. I hate to say it, and of course having a little bit now and then is one thing, but whew, man, I've just seen it time again where people who put in medical school, they tell you whenever people tell you how many drinks they have per week, you just multiply that by 2, and then you're probably close. But when I see it's sort of getting up there, I know I'm not going to help that person, and I generally tell them that.
Wow, I love that you have some principles to what you're doing as well, and it's not just about the business side of things. I think that's important.
Well, if I don't have good outcomes with people, it's bad for business.
Right, absolutely. Well, I think some people, have this misconception that if they pay enough money, that there's going to be some magic fix for them, and I just think that's the wrong way of looking at it. I believe that your wellness and your longevity is not a destination; it's more of a journey, and it requires maintenance, and you have to be disciplined. So what I love about this is what you provide is very cutting edge. It's a very intense major procedure in comparison to some of the other things that are out there, but very effective in how you're doing it. And I think it's important that people know that investing this kind of money in this type of protocol can be the start of their journey, and if they use this as kind of that, that jump point where they say, okay, from here on out, no more alcohol, no more inflammatory foods. I'm going to focus on what I'm putting in my body. I'm going to exercise on a regular basis. I'm going to get sunshine every day that I can, and I'm not going to let myself go into this state of stress. I think that this protocol, combined with that lifestyle change, is the key to someone having a very strong, healthy life and enjoying those last 20, 30 years with vitality and strength versus, being sick and in bed and having to go to the doctor all the time for various, issues and problems. So it's interesting to see the type of clientele that comes to you. And I know that you have taken care of a lot of the ranchers and these, folks out here in Utah, and you're starting to tap into some of, the most popular wellness influencers in the world. I'm curious to know, what other kinds of clients that you have that are interested in this. I'm assuming athletes would be very interested in this. I recall hearing a story about the Texas Rangers before they won the World Series, that they all received these types of regenerative protocols where multiple joint injections in areas where they're likely to get an injury. That's when it started kind of making sense to me that this is a real thing. Do you have a lot of athletes, sport teams that have considered this full body stem cell makeover with you?
Not so much, just because I've never made an effort to work with those guys, because they tend to be very difficult to work with, because you're not just dealing with them, you're dealing with the agent, and you're dealing with the orthopedic surgeon, and you're dealing with their parents, and you're dealing. So I really, for the most part, I'm very particular about who I will treat, because I hate to say this, but I place my quality of life high on the list of priorities, and I find that especially when you're talking about big ticket items, I want to work with people who are going to derive the most benefit from this, and who we're going to mutually have a great sort of symbiotic relationship. Mm-hmm. The people that I find benefit the most from this are the ones who really value their bodies, who really recognize that having a purpose in life is critical. So it's been shown, like on any measure of sort of like quality of life, any measure shows that having a purpose in life is top of the list. For whether it's longevity, whether it's physiologic indices, whether you're looking at emotional aspects, having a purpose in life is critical. And if you're in pain and your purpose in life in any way involves the use of your body, then chronic pain really has the potential to rob you of your purpose in life. And the people who really sort of realize that and decide to invest in it before it becomes a problem, because that's just the name of the game. You do that. You are on this earth long enough and you use your body long enough, you are going to develop aches and pains and arthritis and degenerative processes. And I've found nothing better to reverse that process than these types of therapies.
Very good. So I have a question. I'm 45 years old. I'm in pretty good health. I take care of myself. I constantly hike up the mountain. I try and eat right. I don't take any pharmaceuticals ever. And I'm very conscious about what I put in my body. Because there's nothing wrong with me, per se, I've considered getting this full body stem cell makeover after meeting you and hearing about its success. And one of the things I'd like to know is, what would you tell the viewers of this podcast or this video that we have here? What would you share with the audience about the right time in life to start doing these types of protocols? One of the things that I see often is people think that you have to wait till something is wrong with your body before you start looking into these types of protocols. And I think that people need to understand that you don't have to have something wrong with you, that you can actually get ahead of a condition or an injury by trying these protocols while you still have optimal cognitive function, while you still have good tissue function. Can you talk a little bit about timing and why and when this makes the most sense, and then how often this is something that you might do throughout your lifetime? Sure,
you bet, Mike. So, this probably doesn't make sense. A full body stem cell makeover, for instance, probably doesn't make sense for like a 25-year-old. But it's a lot easier to help somebody before they're a complete wreck. We do get people who are like, when I got my ranchers and cowboys, like they were riddled with arthritis, and we did help them. Nowadays, I'm getting people more sort of age 40, 45, 50 before the wheels fall off. And these are people who, just as we were talking about, who are making an investment in their health, who see the importance of being very physically active very late into life, and they don't ever want pain to be a hindrance for their sort of, fitness regimen. So, as far as doing it, if you look at my practice, as far as like how effective I think this is, because again, none of this is FDA approved, none of this is evidence-based, for instance. This is all a relatively new field. I do have a lot of experience with it. I've been doing it for the stem cells for 15 years, regenerative medicine for 25 years. If you look...
How many times have you done this? I've read somewhere in your biography, I think it's over 10,000 times you've done these types of protocols.
10,000 patients, over many years. And when I was commuting to Brazil, I really racked up the numbers, and I was doing a lot of bone marrow stem cells. So I really racked up quite a few
I
procedures.
mean, Harry, I've never met a doctor that's given that many procedures. You must be the pioneer of this space.
It largely was because in those early days, I really wanted to rack up my numbers. So going to Brazil every other month was for that reason, because I had these people who had these very busy practices, and they would literally, like, I would do 20 bone marrow procedures in a day.
Wow.
And that's part of what allowed me to do full body stem cell makeover, because in order to do 20 ultrasound guided bone marrow aspirations in a day, you have to get really efficient with your movement. I mean, it was like Tai Chi or rock climbing. I mean, I can make a lot of associations to rock climbing, because the people who rock climb at the highest level, it's all about efficacy, efficiency of movement. It's about expending as little energy as possible to do something really quite dynamic and strenuous. So it was after years of doing that, and then I realized I could move very quickly in a short amount of time. But back to your question about how effective this is, if you look across my practice, everybody that I treat, all ages, all conditions, low back pain, neck pain, joint pain, approximately 70% of the people that I see at the 1 year mark are happy. And by happy, I don't mean necessarily 100% pain relief, but I mean they're satisfied with the outcome. They're glad that they did it. They think it was worthwhile. They don't feel like they need another treatment at the 1 year mark. 20% of people at the 1 year mark have had some improvement, but they'd like a little more. Then we talk about maybe doing an additional treatment at the 1 year mark. About 10% of the people that I treat, it's a dud. I just don't help those people. I hate it. Maybe there's a reason for it. We don't know what the reason is. I'm very strict about screening the heavy drinkers. I don't treat people on narcotic pain medications. I'm very careful who I treat, because I don't, if I get bad outcome with somebody, it's bad for business, it's bad for them, it's bad for me, it's bad for everybody. Of that 70% of the people who at the 1 year mark have had a good outcome, I expect to hear back from them anywhere from 2 to 8 years. Average is 4 or 5 years. That's when it's just starting to come back. And they generally don't come back when they're like right back where they were. They're like, I did great for 4 or 5 years. I feel it now starting to come back, and I want to get back to you before we get back to that place. So based on that, I think if somebody is sort of like, for full body stem cell makeover, I think doing it every 4 or 5 years is reasonable. For my people like Ben Greenfield, who are from the Mick Jagger school of anything worth doing is worth overdoing, we do it every year. Ben comes every year. And I see a lot of value in that too. It does, there's, a lot of it depends on your personality type.
That is my personality type. And I'm curious to know where you see value in doing it every year. Could you elaborate on the benefits of this protocol for longevity versus it being a treatment that you're looking for some kind of result? Because in my mind, I think that this can be considered more of a maintenance. So if someone has the budget and they're serious about it, like a Ben Greenfield, why would somebody do it every year? What is the value in that? What's the benefit behind that?
Sure. So keep in mind that by the time you have symptoms, by the time you actually start experiencing pain, it's gone. You don't just, here's no pathology, no pain, and then this is when you start to have pain. It is quite a process for your tissues to degenerate. And when you get to the threshold where you start to have pain, there's quite a bit of degeneration that has already occurred. So, that's why we say we do the treatment and then we wait, 4 or 5 years, you might start feeling it again. So we're going to turn back the hands of time. We're not going to stop the hands of time, but we're going to hopefully turn back the hands of time. Well, for Ben Greenfield, for my folks who are super into it, who do it every year, now, of course, I can't prove this. These treatments are not FDA approved. I can't say this with any scientific certainty, but what I think is happening is each time we do it, we're turning back the hands of time significantly. And then during that year, time marches on, but we're sort of like moving backwards faster than we're moving forwards, if that makes sense.
So are we slowing down the degeneration of our tissue by doing it on a regular basis? Is that the scientific idea behind it?
Well, time marches on, and we continue to have wear and tear as we go through life. But my experience has been each time we do the treatment, it's turning back the hands of time. And if we just keep turning it back, then, I don't know, look at me. Like, I'm 57. I feel fantastic. I'm climbing as hard as I was.
You're 57?
Yeah. I'm climbing as hard as I was when I was in my 30s. I've got little kids. I got a late start, but I'm running around with these guys.
Wait a second. You're 57?
Yeah, I am.
I thought you were my age.
No.
Oh my goodness.
No.
Dr. Harry Adelson. You look so young.
Thanks. I know, it's weird.
Gosh, I'm blown away right now.
I know. I had this lady the other day. I was telling her about snow kiting, and she's like, "Oh, you crazy kids." And I was like, "I think I'm actually older than you, and I am older than her." So.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
and
amazing. And I think this stuff, of course I get it. I get it for myself.
Wow.
So,
man, that's impressive. Really.
That's how I got into all this, is I wanted it for me,
right.
Like with any of this. Like,
right.
That's how
So I love that. It's very authentic. It's you've been doing it, and you can see it. It's clear as day. I am still interested in the idea of biological maintenance. I think that's emerging. And I'd like to know your take on the inflammation side of it and how these biological protocols downregulate inflammation and how it can continue to do that over time. Can you elaborate a little bit on that side of things?
Yeah, I think this is a really important point, and it really sort of drives home, we are all different people. Like, there is not sort of one answer for any one of us, because we're all built differently. We all have different environmental exposures, and you're absolutely right. Like, when we do these therapies, some people do one treatment, they do amazingly well. Other people, it takes several. Other people, it just doesn't work at all. And this boils down to your own sort of internal milieu. And this is part of why I've been excited to start doing the therapeutic plasma exchange in the clinic too, because a lot of these sort of inflammatory markers and inflammatory proteins get trapped in your serum, and there's not a really good way for your body to get rid of them. We can go through detox protocols. There's a lot of different things we can do, but at a certain point, like, sometimes they just get stuck. The therapeutic plasma exchange is fascinating because we take the blood out of your body, separate out the cellular components, put it back in your body, put the cellular components back, separate out the serum, which is where you house microplastics, for instance. It's where you house a lot of these inflammatory markers. It's where this sort of gunk that accumulates in your blood that's very difficult for your kidneys to excrete. We actually just take it completely out and discard it, replace it with sterile saline and albumin. Then you sort of repopulate your own antibody population and that sort of stuff. We give IVIG just sort of so you don't just leave with no antibodies. But that's something that I started doing, and for the first time in my adult life, we're not talking about cholesterol so much, but I've always had congenitally high cholesterol. And this is for the first time in my life, I'm walking around with normal ranges of cholesterol because of this therapeutic plasma exchange, which I think is a great marriage between regenerative therapies and this therapeutic plasma exchange. For this very reason, of decreasing the amount of inflammation in your body.
So would you say that the key to longevity is in regular downregulation of inflammation?
I think a big part of longevity is about emotional balance. I think that's something we're not sort of talking about, and it's not something that, I certainly don't specialize in it. But I think that is something that merits mention, is that emotional balance is critical. But beyond that, if you're walking around an inflammatory mess, if you're drinking alcohol, it's just, we sort of touched upon that. But I think between the regenerative therapies and I think with the addition of the therapeutic plasma exchange, just decreasing the amount of inflammation, and probably like the single easiest way to do it is through diet. I think, unfortunately, one of the things with the GLP-1s is people are like, oh, look, I'm taking this drug, I can eat whatever I want. And they're eating less, but you still have to take responsibility for yourself and make good choices and all of that sort of stuff.
I like that. Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned it's got me really thinking about the physiological side of this whole process. I've noticed that when people are in a relaxed state of mind, they don't have the stress that you are mentioning here, and they go to receive these protocols, they tend to work a little bit better. One of the things I really like about your practice here in Utah is that you're in Park City. You're surrounded by these beautiful mountains, beautiful views. The air is clean and crisp. The water is living and clean, and it's just amazing. And I'm a firm believer that if we send our clients to you here in Park City, that they're going to experience a physiological component here that gives them the ability to be calm, to be at peace, to be grounded. And when they go in to get the protocol, I do believe that they will receive it better and that it will work better. Do you believe this too? And if you do, can you elaborate on why that is from your perspective?
Absolutely. You know, Park City is one of those beautiful places in the United States. Where there's a very nice boutique hotel directly across the parking lot from my clinic. For people who want something a little fancier, the Waldorf Astoria is 4-minute drive away. As I told you when we first met, we take our cues from the hospitality industry. So my office staff come pick folks up at whether it's Waldorf Astoria or whatever. We get you in. People feel very at home with us. We have gorgeous views of the mountain. It is a very relaxing scene. We do everything under IV sedation, so there's no pain involved with the treatments. People go to sleep, and I go to work. They wake up. They have a nice little ketamine buzz because we tend to use ketamine to keep people still while I'm working on them. And we feed them some good lunch and some good organic English breakfast tea or some coffee, and then get them back to their hotel. And people generally have a very positive experience. Just the whole, I understand that it's expensive, this procedure. And so I'm providing them, on the one hand, what I think is the most comprehensive stem cell upgrade ever conceived. But on the other hand, I'm providing them with the experience of receiving really the top treatment available in the world.
Yeah. I think that's what really brings us together is White Glove Wellness is all about longevity and wellness as an experience. And we wanted to elevate the idea of receiving these types of protocols because you do your research and you see these people going into these clinics that are, they're not experts. They're just kind of winging it. And people are a little bit scared. Yeah. They go in nervous, timid. There's bright sterile lights. It's just a very sterile environment. It's not a very comfortable environment, and I believe they're skeptical and scared. And then you look at the results, and they're not getting the benefits. And then you look at people that come to a place like Park City, they go through this whole experience.
And this is our whole gig. This is all we've ever done. This treatment, everything has led to this, and it's all I've ever done. I don't know how to do anything else.
Amazing. I totally get it. I think it's fantastic. Another question for you. With the Full-Body Stem Cell Makeover, you're injecting so many different areas. What is the value or what is the benefit of doing multiple areas versus just one particular area? I mean, obvious there's more product going into your body, but is there something else to it? Because I understand that your body goes into a state of healing. So is there something I don't know that maybe you can explain that is a benefit to getting it in multiple areas all at the same time versus just coming to you once a month to get this knee, this shoulder, this, what's the benefit of doing it all at once?
I mean, the first thing you said is obviously it's a larger quantity of product, and that that's not to be discounted. Like it's a gargantuan volume of product. So that is important in and of itself. You wouldn't if we were just treating your shoulders. There's no way we would be able to get that quantity into your shoulders, like unless we were giving it to you IV or something like that. But so first and foremost, there's the quantity of product, and that is important. Second, there does seem to be some sort of synergistic effect that happens because I'll have a lot of people say, well, my low back really is my area of primary concern. So are we just going to distract my body by doing all of these other areas? And I have not found that to be the case. If anything, seems to be a synergistic effect. When you do an IV, think of it this way. When you do an IV, this product that you're giving is going to follow the laws of hemodynamics and fluid dynamics. It's going to go to your lungs first, your heart, your liver, your internal organs. It's going to follow the blood flow. It's not going to get inside your knees. It's certainly not going to get into your intervertebral discs. It's not so much going to get into your spinal canal. So the way we do it is we're putting primarily into the musculoskeletal structures, so these tissues have the ability to exert their paracrine effect on the musculoskeletal structures, which are much more poorly vascularized than the internal organs. The first pass release is on these structures that we depend on for moving pain-free through space, and then it gets picked up by general circulation. And you do get an internal effect. You do get it does go to your lungs and it does go to your liver secondarily, but the primary effect is on the musculoskeletal system.
So there's individuals that, let's say they have a shoulder issue, okay, and they maybe have a bad liver, okay, so they get an injection in their shoulder. Is it possible that these biologics are traveling through their body and focusing on the liver rather than the shoulder? And is that part of the reason why it would make more sense to get multiple areas done, so that way your brain isn't signaling these biologics to go to a particular area that maybe wasn't intended as your targeted goal?
Well, I'm from the Mick Jagger school of anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So I just think if we just blast you with a higher quantity of product, hit everything at once, you're more likely for everything to improve.
Very good, very good. Could you also explain the difference between human tissue products that utilize the extracellular matrix component versus a systemic product that is tissue-less, and why that matters and how that works?
Right. So what we use here is we call it naive, direct from the umbilical cord product. So it combines, you have certainly the mesenchymal stem cells, but then additionally there's Wharton's jelly, there's the collagen, there's all these other sort of, like, you can see it when you thaw the vial, and you can actually see like jibs of stuff floating around in there. When a mother is gestating a baby inside of her, the building blocks of the musculoskeletal structure comes from that Wharton's jelly. I mean, that's where the baby builds its skeleton from, is those tissues. So I prefer using what we have available to us is what I prefer to use in musculoskeletal cases. There was a period of time where I was commuting to Columbia for my patients that wanted culture expanded cells. When you get culture expanded cells, it's just the cells. That's all you're getting. It's just the mesenchymal stem cells, which is great, if that's what you want. If you're treating a neurodegenerative condition, if you're treating an Alzheimer's, if you're treating a MS, if you're treating something like that, and you want to give the person hundreds of millions of stem cells intravenously, that's great. But when you're treating musculoskeletal stuff, I prefer what we have available to us here, for the very reason that the smaller quantity of very robust, very happy cells straight from the umbilical cord, combined with that cellular matrix, that extracellular matrix, that seems to just render a superior outcome. Because I've done it both ways.
Got it. I've gathered that the U.S. is the gold standard of umbilical cord tissue products. Due to the strict regulations the FDA has on how it's manipulated, how it's processed. It's my understanding that in the U.S., one umbilical cord is able to take care of about 4 or 5 people with certain treatments. Now, maybe not the type of treatment you're doing, but because you're putting so much product in there. But I guess what my question is it fair to say that the U.S. is the gold standard because of this regulatory compliance versus being able to culture and expand the cells here locally? Do you feel that you're giving clients a more potent, more pure form of this product versus them getting something where the stem cells have been isolated and expanded separate from the other growth factors? Would you say that's better and more pure with what we have?
Well, I mean, there's two questions here. There's the idea of just using the naive tissue, which we sort of covered in the last question, which is when we're treating musculoskeletal conditions, I think it's a superior approach because it has sort of a broader spectrum of materials available to a body that's trying to heal than you get when you just isolate the stem cells. When you're talking about regulatory oversight, that's sort of a different question. And I would say, as much as we like to complain about the FDA, and despite all their foibles, they do a tremendous amount of good. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of people who don't die in the United States over stuff where people do die of those types of things in other countries. So, I would say we do have a pathway here in the US where we are able to use this stuff under regulatory compliance with the FDA. That's sort of the good news, is what you're getting, as long as the doctor knows what they're doing and they don't then contaminate whatever it is, and they have a good concept what they're doing, you're much better off here.
First of all, why would you want to go outside of the U.S. to receive any type of protocol? The U.S. is amazing. The clients that I have, at least, are not wanting to leave their home, much less go to Mexico or Panama or some other country.
Now, the other part of that conversation, because you mentioned Panama, my friend Neil Riordan is the owner of the Stem Cell Institute in Panama, and it's one of the best outfits anywhere in the world, and that a lot of that has to do with their own internal regulation. And there are some very safe, excellent groups like Stem Cell Institute.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. I've heard a lot about Dr. Neil Riordan, great work he's doing. Again, even though it's great, I have clients that will not go to Panama.
Yeah, right.
They want to stay in the United States. So no matter how great it is, it just doesn't matter, Now, would it be fair to say that if you've got some serious conditions going on, serious degeneration or muscular dystrophy, cerebral palsy, MS, that it makes sense to go out of the country and explore some of these expanded cells?
For sure, especially since Neil Riordan and Stem Cell Institute in Panama have a great deal of experience with that stuff. We could throw cells at people here because we can achieve large numbers. It just would be very expensive. But I just have no experience dealing with MS or any of that sort of thing. So in that case, if we're talking about like a Stem Cell Institute in Panama, I think people would be better off going there.
I agree.
But not for low back pain and neck pain.
Exactly. And I think that's what people need to know. And I love that we brought this up, because if it's a chronic pain situation, chronic inflammation, if you've got lower back pain, if you've got knee pain, if you're suffering from a tear or degenerative joints, you don't need to go out of the country.
Right.
You can get that done right here in the United States. So I think people need to know that. But if it is something severe and it is something that needs, the benefit of cultured expanded cells and the isolation and millions of those put into your body, I think that's when it makes a lot of sense. But with that comes risks. There are risks to getting those types of cellular protocols. And I think there's a lot less risk in what you're doing here in the United States. So for me, I find that most of my clients just have no interest in that. And if I meet somebody with a degenerative condition or something serious, it's not my client anyways, because we are longevity and wellness. We're not here to treat conditions and disease.
Right.
So I would just refer them to Panama or somewhere else anyways. Another thing I was interested in is, what is your take on where this industry is headed? I've had some thoughts about this, and I wanted to just get your take on it. Do you think that at some point that people will have biological independence? Do you think that there is health sovereignty in the future, where we no longer have to rely on the industrial medical complex as it is, because we will be able to access these biological protocols on a regular basis to keep us healthier and well and prevent a lot of these conditions? Do you think that's where this is headed, that this will be mainstream? What is your take on it?
As we were talking before the interview about how effective this stuff is, I'm just like, still to this day, I've been doing it as long as I've been doing it, I still sometimes am blown away at how well this works. And I get people who are, really far down the path of chronic pain, And I can't imagine that this is not going to eventually become, part of sort of the accepted realm, because it's just so effective. Mm-hmm. So I'm sort of the last person who has a crystal ball, or if I had one, who would even look at it. But I feel really good about where this is all going, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Very nice, very nice. Harry, talk to me a little bit about the spine. Mm-hmm. What things can you do with the back that can help people?
Most back pain frequently is not caused by anything that you can see on the MRI. So what's interesting about low back pain in MRI is there's really no correlation between how bad the MRI looks and whether or not the person has pain, yes or no, to begin with. And that's been well documented. This to the point that the American College of Physicians, I think it was in 2020, they issued a position statement that physicians should stop ordering MRIs for non-specific low back pain because it doesn't really give you any information. The reason for that, from a regenerative medicine perspective, is that most chronic pain of the back is caused by changes in the microscopic environment. So if you think of like a chronic tennis elbow, acute tennis elbow is caused by inflammation. Chronic tennis elbow is you get changes in the microscopic connective tissue. You get these blood vessels that are irregularly formed and they're hyperconcentrated. And every time you grow a new blood vessel, you also grow a new sensory nerve along next to it. So now you have this hyperconcentration of sensory nerves where you don't get enough oxygen to the area. So you're actually getting hypoxic pain from not enough oxygen to these nerves. And it's people who I'm sure you've spoken to people who've had severe chronic tennis elbow. It can be incredibly painful. We think most whiplash and low back pain cases are that exact same thing. It's changes in the microscopic connective tissue. One of the things that we know that stem cells do is they help with wound healing. And what is wound healing? But it's the triggering of new regularly formed blood vessels. You have like an ulcer, you have something that will not heal, and you put stem cells in the area, you grow these new properly formed blood vessels, and now you can grow skin over top. And that's been my experience with sort of like post-whiplash syndrome, low back pain. Now, when you get to something where you do have radiographic evidence, when people who have desiccated lumbar discs, dehydrated lumbar discs, this is where the disc has at some point got a split in it and the moisture leaked out, and now it's dry. And a dry disc is a painful disc. The conventional treatment for that is fusion and drugs, and that is it. There is no good conventional treatment for that. That is one area where we do very, I don't want to say knock it out of the park because I don't want to jinx myself, but we do very well consistently. So people who have, like, if you look at the MRI and you look at the intervertebral discs and it's like white, 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 black, white, put stem cells in that disc. Now what I'm doing is I additionally put a laser into the disc. I have an interstitial laser where we place an 18-gauge needle into the disc, thread this fiber optic filament through the needle into the disc, zap laser into the disc right before we put the stem cells in, and that combination, I'm getting even better. I love it. I love treating this stuff. Yeah, these are people. Amazing. These are people who like literally like they are at their wits' end because they're looking at having their backs fused, and once you do that, like. You can always have your back fused, but you can't have it unfused. Right. Like, there's no turning back from that. And your quality of life generally doesn't go up from there. So these are very rewarding cases when we have success.
Wow. Very cool. So in your mind, you're a naturopathic medical doctor. Mm-hmm. Is everything you do considered all natural?
In my mind, it is. Yeah, in my mind, it absolutely is. It's just natural modalities. If we're doing cells, I mean, that's a natural modality. If we're doing laser, that's light. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, naturopathic medicine is guided by 6 philosophical principles. The healing power of nature being one of them. Allowing the body to heal itself to be another. So yeah, I mean, everything that I do, I feel to be very much within the realm of naturopathic.
That's the same with us. At White Glove Wellness, we are firm believers in staying in the realm of all natural protocols. So we're constantly being contacted by companies that want to offer us these different synthetic peptides or synthetic things, and we just turn it all down and we stay kind of in our focus of all natural. So I'd love you to talk a little bit about something that our clients are always concerned about, and you know, when they're new to this concept and they don't know what they're putting in their body, what I try and explain to them is that this is from the human body, and thereby it's for the human body. Can you talk a little bit about the safety behind regenerative biologics and give our clients a little bit of perspective from your expert opinion of why they can be at peace about this?
Yeah, so this is very, very safe. I've been doing my personal private practice, I've been going on for 25 years, continuous practice. I've had one serious bad outcome. It was an infection, and it was because we did a treatment, and then the next week he went to the dentist. And we always tell people, don't go to the dentist. He just spaced it out. And so that in 25 years, one infection. And infection really is what you're worried about with all of this. I mean, that really is the sort of the worst case scenario. It's been over 10,000 patients in 25 years. So what's
the whole thing with the dentist? What is?
So anytime you go to the dentist, you know, just like if you have your hip replaced, they always say don't go to the dentist afterwards, because anytime you go to the dentist and they poke around in your mouth, the bacteria that's in your mouth gets into your blood, and if you've had some surgical intervention, the bacteria can go to that area. It can graft onto the area of injury, and then it can sort of replicate. And that's what happened with this guy. Was we did one of his intervertebral discs, and we always tell people don't go to the dentist. He went to the dentist anyway, and that was my one bad outcome. And I try to be transparent, like I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
But
people want to hear this.
Yeah,
stuff.
and it was
you got to hear the good and the bad. Absolutely.
But apart from that, that is really the worst thing that happens with regenerative medicine is it doesn't help people. You're not worse, but you're not better. That's sort of the nice thing about it, is it's very forgiving. Whereas you can't say the same thing for a spine fusion or a joint replacement. And there are times where those are necessary, and there are times where people have great outcomes. But even in the best scenarios, there's stuff that can go wrong.
What are some other things that people can do just to be extra safe? And what are some of the things that you might turn someone down that's interested in getting a protocol? Like, for example, maybe if they've had cancer in the past or things like that.
Yeah, so for cancer, people need to be 5-year cancer-free. So what that means is it's been shown that stem cell treatment doesn't appear to cause cancer, but if someone has an existing cancer, it could potentially accelerate the growth. So if there's a known cancer, they need to be cancer-free for at least 5 years. I unfortunately just had to say no to a lady yesterday because as much as I would love to treat her, she has active cancer.
So even if you've got a torn meniscus and you've had cancer 5 years ago,
better to do PRP.
Better to do PRP.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Are there any other conditions that might prevent somebody from being able to do this?
That's it, really. If they're heavy drinkers, I don't recommend treatment. If they're on narcotic pain medication, I don't recommend treatment at all. And that's just, it's not a judgment. It's just when you take narcotic pain medications for a period of time, your brain loses the ability to really understand pain. So these are the people who have these incredible pain responses from, where if it was anybody else I did it on, they'd be fine. So I just prefer to not go down that road with people. But that's really it. Alcohol, drugs, cancer. And, if they've blood pressure through the roof, if they're super unhealthy, then it's not a good idea.
What about if they're overweight?
Oddly enough, it doesn't seem to matter that much. Because early on, I used to deny people treatment. And I had this one guy who just got me on the phone and he's like, look, he just talked me into it. And we did it and we had a great outcome. And I sort of ate my words. So ever since then, I just tell people, it's ideal to do it with people who are of normal BMI and normal weight. But I will treat people who are overweight because it does seem to work still.
If people are diabetic,
Yeah, no way.
Is this no?
No way. No, because they don't heal. Like the problem with diabetes is you lose the ability to heal, and what we're doing is triggering a healing response. So yeah, you need to get your diabetes under control.
Mm-hmm. How much under control would you say? Like A1C under 7?
Yeah, I want to see. Yeah, I mean, I just want to see someone who is overall in good health. I don't really have number cutoffs, but someone who's overall in good health.
Got it. What about any cognitive function benefits? Have you noticed that these protocols are helping people to relieve certain addictions or improve memory or reduce brain fog? What kind of stuff have you seen?
So again, none of these treatments are FDA approved, and I can't say with any sort of certainty about any of it. But if you look up nose to brain stem cells, if you Google nose to brain stem cells, there's a application to the sphenopalatine ganglion, which you can achieve through the nose. So it's a spray through the nose. And if either, you can also do nose to brain exosomes is another search. And there's actually quite a bit of data looking at delivering regenerative products to the fifth cranial nerve and treating anything from, Alzheimer's to, you just go down the list of neurocognitive disorders. I do it as an injection. There's an injection that I've done for years that I've used for migraine headaches, for trigeminal neuralgia, for whiplash headaches, for that sort of thing. And just a few years ago, I thought, I should be doing this with the regenerative stuff. Once that nose to brain stem cells literature really started to hit, it's a little further upstream than doing it through the nose. And when you do it through the nose, you waste some of it because it gets caught up on the nasal mucosa. When I do it as an injection, it looks like the Spanish Inquisition. It looks horrible, but oddly enough, it's actually completely painless. And most of my people are asleep anyway, with the anesthesiologist. But I do that regularly as part of the Full-Body Stem Cell Makeover, for instance.
Very nice, very nice. So I guess before we wrap things up, I'd love to know if there's anything that you'd like to share with future White Glove Wellness clients that would give them comfort and excitement in the opportunity to come work with you as their practitioner.
Well, first of all, I just love working with this guy. I met him we just met a few months ago, and every communication we've had, I've been more and more impressed by you. So I'm just thrilled because I'm very careful who I associate with, and part of why I have a good reputation is I don't hitch my wagon to really anybody. But I'm very pleased to be working with White Glove Wellness and with you, Mike, because I think you have the right approach to all of this stuff. And so, yeah, I think that if you resonate with this guy, you're going to resonate with me because we think alike in a lot of ways. If
you want to look like this at 58 years old, then give us a call. No. I feel the same about you. I feel very comfortable with you, and therefore I feel very comfortable sending our clients to you. I think that you speak from the heart. I think that you're very authentic, and I think that being a fellow mountain man, we have some commonalities. And I think that people that experience extreme nature as a lifestyle, I think are very aware of things, and they're practicing a life that is aligned with what the higher power wants us to be, and I really like that about you, and that's one of the things that made me want to work with you, is just knowing that we're from similar areas. And I also am very, very impressed with the amount of work that you've done in this space. You are truly a pioneer, if not the pioneer, here in the United States. I've not met any practitioners yet that have had the level of experience that you have with this. So I'm very excited to start getting some clients over to you, and I really look forward to the opportunity. Great. So thank you for having me today. And for those of you watching, you'll be able to click on a link here at the bottom of this video that will take you to a page that will tell you more about our custom signature protocol developed by Dr. Harry Adelson and myself that is only available exclusively through White Glove Wellness. Learn more by clicking on that link, and we're really excited to share more information with you and get you on a path of longevity and regeneration. Thank you so much. Thank you, Harry.